Welcome to the Short-Term Rental Playmaker Podcast, where we break down what it really takes to win in short-term rentals in today's market. From insider tips and emerging trends to real conversations with top playmakers in the space, this show gives you the tools, strategies, and mindset to build and scale a successful short-term rental business. Now, here's your host, Joe Roney.
Today's episode is brought to you by Savvy STR Agents, the short-term rental real estate experts helping investors find profitable vacation rental properties nationwide. If you're serious about scaling your STR portfolio, Savvy STR Agents should be your first call.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Short-Term Rental Playmaker Podcast. I am super excited to have, in my opinion, one of the top cleaning handyman couples in the Panama City Beach industry, people that do some work for me, but really want to talk about this industry with them. But Katie Elder, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm so glad to be here. We really appreciate working with you and what you and your wife are growing and building in Panama City Beach, for sure.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. You guys have been a tremendous help, saved my life so many times over the past 2 years. And that's really why I wanted to have you on, because I think there's a big misconception in the short-term rental industry that all you got to do is have a cleaner and a handyman, and that's all it is, and you could be successful. But I really want to kind of break down like what that relationship looks like and what, your expectations are on the other side of it, because we as hosts, we listen to all these gurus and these podcasts, and they say, do it this way and do it that way. But we don't really get to always think about the person on the other side. So how long have you guys been doing in the I'm going to call it just being in the hospitality industry in general, because that's really what it is.
Yeah. So I actually started just doing one condo a week, and I did that 8 years ago. And I paid for a minivan for my family in cash. And my husband said, "Hey, what you doing over there?" Yeah. And he started slowly just taking on projects alongside me, and it turned into a family business. So this is our 9th season, and we just could not be happier.
Yeah. So you're not only cleaning now, but you're cleaning more than just one condo. So how many units do you personally take care of now?
So there is, just like hosts have misconceptions about this industry, we are not a lone wolf. My husband and I are a team for sure, and we have a family business, but we have families that work alongside of us that really help us maximize what we're doing and the cleans that we have. So right now we have 28 units, but they're spread out, between these families that we all kind of share, kind of like the babysitter club. If you're like a 90s kid, yeah. We kind of share those in a circle like that.
And I think that's such a really cool way of doing it. Obviously, when we first met a few years ago, you guys didn't even clean. You did some handyman for me, and then it was somebody else in your group that did cleaning for one of my units, and then you ended up taking another one, and it just kind of blossomed from there. But you guys have a really great niche on this community.
Yeah, we are extremely careful now about where we work and where we invest our time and energy. We really focus on the east end of Panama City Beach. All of our units are within 2 or 3 miles of our house. And when we tell an owner or somebody calling us for handyman services that we want them to be successful, we really mean that. If your property isn't successful, that's our neighbor. And we're invested in the success of our neighborhood for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a great way of looking at it that way. Obviously, you want these houses to stay maintained, want us to keep them clean, also keep them booked and keep the guests happy, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really, our job is in the shadows a lot. So we're not in front, we're not greeting guests at the door, and we're not the face that they see on Airbnb. We really have the position of like that service mentality, right? And so we're not only serving the guests, we're serving the hosts too. Many of our hosts are not in the area. They don't have eyes. They don't have boots on the ground. And we really appreciate that trust that we can build, saying, this is what we're seeing. This is what your unit looks like. This is what your unit smells like. This is what your yard looks like. Those details are really important for people for their investment when they can't be present in the city that they're in.
Yeah. What would you say that really, because obviously there's a lot of different ways to hire cleaning and handyman people, right? And some people like to hire these big companies and they have this massive operation and this linen pool and the whole works. And I personally have been bit by that. So obviously I think that's how we got hooked up the first time after I fired a cleaner that was in that niche. But what would you think that really differentiates having services like what you guys do compared to these bigger cleaning companies?
So I think there's room for everyone, and those bigger cleaning companies, I could rail on them. But the reality is they provide a service. They do work for some owners, right?
Yep.
For us, I don't want to work with somebody that I'm not getting a Christmas card from. So I want you to know my husband's name. I want you to know our family. I want you to know what we stand for, our ethic, our integrity. Those are what you're paying for when you pay for somebody that's an individual that's coming into your unit and working that unit every time. So if I make a mistake, I make a mistake. It happens. I'm not a robot, and I correct that mistake. I apologize and we move forward. But sometimes that's not the service level that you'll get at a larger company. You'll have a different person in your unit each time. You're tracking behind that. And that kind of looks different. You'll get a different level of service. You also have a little bit less hassle, to be honest. So those larger companies, it's a little more hands-off for hosts, but then the results don't always reflect the level of service you want.
Yeah. I had one that just called me the other day that they have a unit on the East End, and they had a cleaning company that had a different cleaner in there every single day, and they ended up having someone break into the property because it was one of these bigger properties, and ended up referring them to somebody in your network, and I think they were able to take that property over just a couple days ago.
Yeah, I think if I could say something to owners, it's a weird industry, right? So I scrub toilets for a living, Joe. It's like this, not this glamour lifestyle. I absolutely love it. Wouldn't trade it. But we're in people's investments all the time. So when you look to hire a cleaner, you want to look for someone that you are trusting your investment with. Whether that's a large company, whether that's a small company, take your time. You said you've been bit. We've been bit too, and so we've seen, I'm not recommending that handyman. He did shoddy work and no thanks, So really, I think when you're looking at how do I take care of my property, you really want to look at that and say, how am I going to do that? Go slow. Ask a lot of questions. There's questions that every host should be asking that very few actually do.
Yeah, I agree. And something that we implemented this year, and I've talked about it on this podcast before, is doing monthly checks. And we're still not perfect on the scheduling and the timing, and we're still working through a few things. But I think it's so important. It's one of the things that I think I missed last year. There were some, fire drills that came up to me that guests have an issue on a Friday night that could have been prevented if I would have had, a monthly service in place. And that's something that you guys are handling for me now.
Yeah, and I think technology is really your friend with this. I see hosts kind of reluctant to ask cleaners to use technology. Use technology. You should be receiving photos after every clean, detailed photos of your entire property, period. Yep. That protects you, that protects your cleaner. That also allows your guests to have a great experience. If you're not getting photos, start there, right? Then after that, go to scheduling. Your scheduling should be automated. Your cleaner should be getting a notification every time you get a booking. Those are things that you can really help your cleaner be successful with when you have those requirements in place.
Yeah, and I would say that, if you're looking for a cleaner and you find someone that's in a situation like you guys are, that if you take good care of a property, it's going to get better reviews. And if it gets better reviews, it's going to book more. And if it books more, you get to earn more income.
You really want to find a cleaner that is willing to invest in your property. So know what you have to offer. If you're offering a 1-bedroom property, small, somebody's not going to spend 6 hours inside your property, right? So you understand that, how long they're going to spend in your time, what the going rate for a 1-bedroom is, right? A 1-bedroom in a different location is going to be priced different. So really know what you're asking and then know what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I get from a lot of my clients that are buying in. I tell them how much a cleaning fee is. They're like, oh my gosh, that seems really, really high. And I'm like, well, you got to understand, we have 5 months of peak season that the majority of the people in the hospitality make the majority of their money. That doesn't mean they don't make any money in the slow season.
Right.
But it's like all of us. We get higher rents in the summer, lower rents in the winter. Same thing. Those rates have to be able to give you a good living when it's all said and done.
I think I really respect, so just between you and I, the way you run your business, I respect that you always pay us for our time, and you're respectful of how you ask when you need us to use our time for you, right? You're not asking me to go do something for free. You're very respectful of that. And I think pricing is difficult. It's easy to say, whoa, they want that much for this property. The reality is we're paying for cleaning supplies. We're having taxes come out of that. We're having all sorts of things that are not reflective in that price. So when you pay for a cleaning fee, you are paying for someone to come in and really care for your property. And that's hard to find. And when you find that, really hold on to it.
Yeah, I had an owner that I used to work for and no longer do. That was like when I first told her the cleaning fee, she was like, I mean, if we're spending that should be like 4 people for 5 hours and the whole works. And I'm like, look, you don't get to dictate how many people or how long they stay in your property. This is the fee, and sometimes it's going to take an hour because the guest left it really clean and they only used one bed. And sometimes it's going to take 6 hours because they left it an absolute mess, right? And from one state to the next could be totally different, and that's why that fee, sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some.
I think one thing that's really important for owners to realize, and we deal with a lot of new owners, so this is something that I see kind of overlooked sometimes, is our lives are lived in a 10 to 4 window. So like when a guest checks out and when a guest checks in is really important for us. We have to fit our life in that 6 hours. That's the only time that we're making money, right? Yeah. So we're kind of Tetrising our schedule to fit the maximum amount of income in that 6-hour time frame, right? So when your checkout time is and your check-in time, that's something your cleaner needs to know. And I know that can be different with different markets, but know your market, know what that is, and make sure that's clearly communicated. We've had owners do like check-ins at 2 and checkouts at 11. I'm like, hey, that only gives us 3 hours. And sometimes you're really rolling the dice if you're going to be able to get that done in time, Yeah. Guest damage is a real issue.
It is. And I tell people all the time, we're in the hospitality industry, and the person that's coming in next spent their hard-earned money for their one vacation of the year, maybe, and we want that experience to be great. So they don't care what the guest before them did. They don't care what the guest after them did. They want to have a great experience for their 3 days, 5 days, 7-day vacation, whatever it is, and you only have 6 hours to get it ready for them.
And for hosts, I think it's so important. Your best guest is a repeat guest every single time. Less questions, less hassle. They know what to expect. They're not getting lost. They know where the front door is. They know what to do, where the pool is. They are less hassle for you, and which that trickles down to less hassle for us. So we want them to have a good experience. Come back. That's something that's part of our business, that we want every guest to come in and say, we had a great vacation. Thanks to Joe. It was clean. We'll book again. Those are the best,
Yep. So when a host is calling you to interview you to, potentially clean for them, obviously you're interviewing them first, but what are some of the questions they ask you that, what are some of the questions they should be asking you that they're not? And what are some of the common things that you see?
Yeah. So I think it's okay to be a learner, right? This industry is always changing. It's okay to say, I don't know, right? Yep. And so you want to go in with some questions, but ask follow-up questions as well. So the first thing that you should be asking is, who will be inside my unit? So then if they say it's a family business or it's, these people, then you say, how will I know who's coming in, right? Yep. So like, what will that look like? Then you're going to ask questions like, what do you do with my linens? How do you take care of them? Do you wash linens on site? Do you take them off site? It's really important, if you want to stage your property and have a really good look, which you need to have in these markets now, that you know where your blankets and your sheets and your towels are. You do not want those to go missing or get exchanged without you knowing about it. Then you want to ask pricing. You want to be really careful about what that pricing includes. Think about your amenities, right? Do you want to provide those amenities? Do you want your cleaners to? How are you going to handle shipping? Like, will you receive boxes for me? Will you put things in? Do you do store runs? All those kind of details really affect your property. If you want to, kind of the bare minimum of properties right now have like a coffee bar, right?
Yep.
If you want to provide that, that's amazing. We'd love to stage that for you. How are you going to restock that?
Yep.
So be thinking about not just the first step, but like the third and fourth step, right? Those are really important things. Are you checking remote batteries? Are you checking air filters? When you're on property, what are you actually doing? A question that I don't think get asked enough, and this is just me turning into a cleaner now for 8 years, is you really should be asking, what are you using to clean my property?
Yeah.
So your flooring, I know you get sand on the floor and you get black feet complaints. And those just really are preventable depending on what your cleaner is using. So be asking about that. Know your floor type, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then know if what they're using is going to be a good fit for that, for sure. And then ask questions about scheduling. How do you keep a schedule? How do you get informed of new bookings? All of these questions are really important. When I'm listening to a host, I have different criteria that I'm listening to,
Yep.
So use terms that speak to cleaners. Are you going to be a high volume rental, or is this a family vacation second home?
Yeah.
Those are really important details that your cleaner needs to know.
Yeah, I agree. I think those are all really good questions. And, like I said, when you talk to owners, because I've sent you quite a few of them, you're asking them as many questions, I think, to make sure it's the right fit. And I think that's really important for that relationship build, because if you have a good relationship, everything's going to work better, right? So, the host should never think of their cleaner as this person just works for me. It's a partnership. Like, we are intertwined, and our success together is together, and our failure is together, no matter which way you look at it. So you can't look at it as I'm just hiring somebody and they're, someone I could just, replace really quickly.
I think that's really important. We listen for like keywords. If you call me a maid, I'm not going to work for you. Like, that's a no-go for me, right?
Yes.
I can tell you a success story with one of your clients. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is clear? Okay.
Yep.
So his name is Ethan. He bought on Beach Drive. Okay.
Yep.
So I went and walked through the property, met him, he asked a lot of really good questions. I asked questions, and it seemed to be a really good fit. And I went to clean his property, and I had misquoted the price. It was like bigger square footage than I realized, and it took us almost an hour and a half longer than what I thought it would. Okay. And I just lost sleep over it. I felt so bad. I didn't know what to do. And I just called him and I said, I think I mispriced this. I need to raise my price. I think I needed to raise like $30 each clean, a bigger amount.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm so sorry. I will leave your linens at the porch for you and let you find another cleaner, And he said, you have proven your worth already in this communication, and I'm fine with the raised rate. Yeah. And to me, that makes me want to do my best job for you, right? Yep. You're trusting me. You're trusting the level of work that I'm providing for you. I want to provide a good service for you and for your guests. And that was an incredible example, of somebody that came in prepared and really rolled with some punches and handled it well.
Yeah. I think it's important. I mean, as a realtor, I try to teach and educate and do everything I can to these clients to give them some reasonable expectations. And, unfortunately, not all of them get it, but we definitely try. And as you've stated before, the Midwesterners definitely get it.
So like our personal criteria is like married for sure. Love the solid married people. Yep. Love the Midwest. And we really love like certain types of properties that have a certain look. It doesn't help us if your property doesn't rent. Yep. If you're not willing to have it look modern and updated, I can't guarantee that I'm going to make money with you, because it's really a partnership. Yep. If your host is not booking their property, that hurts me because I have a gap in my calendar that I can't fill.
Yep. I like to tell this story. So one of my main cleaners on the West End, or my main cleaning team that I use on my West End properties, because you guys don't go down there. But when I first took over this property, they were already cleaning it. And my wife and I walked it and we're like, oh, we could definitely tell it wasn't quality, right? But the property wasn't quality. And we were going in to put a $30,000 or $40,000 redesign in and make it better and raise the standards and the whole works. And I said, you know what? I have somebody else I'm going to interview, but I'm going to go ahead and give them a shot. So I had that cleaning company come in, and the husband and wife came together to do the walkthrough with me, and they were just floored. And they were like, I can't say that we didn't clean it well because on purpose, but we cleaned it based on the type of property that it was. She's like, we are going to keep this perfect for you at all times. And I have not had a complaint. And I've been with them now for little over 2 years. And, because they had a low quality property that wasn't booking. So they weren't giving it the extra. They weren't doing what they needed to be done because they knew the owner didn't care. So if the owner didn't care, they didn't care. And I definitely think that goes a long way.
It does. And I think, we're in a people industry. Right. So
Yep.
Yes, it's real estate. Yes, it's investing. Yes, you're crunching numbers a lot. But at the end of the day, it's people, and if there's a storm forecasted to come, you want somebody to be able to move your patio furniture in that cares about your property enough to try to get it ready for that storm. Right.
Yep.
And the reality is, not every property gets that level of care. Right. So you really want your property to stand out. You want to book well. You want to make my job as easy as possible, and we'll do our best for you every single time. Truly,
Yeah, no, I think it's important. And I tell people, when you're interviewing cleaners, the type of cleaner that you want to go with, whether it's a big company, small mom and pop, or a small community, it doesn't matter. I think everybody has the opportunity to do a very good job for you. It's setting those really clear expectations up front. And having that open communication, but things are going to happen, right? There's going to be times that, it doesn't work out. We showed up at one of our properties a couple years ago and we had all white sheets and white towels and white everything. And I showed up to the property and it was all blue sheets and blue towels on the thing. And my linen closet was empty. And it was like, okay, we have a miss here. What's going on? We set very clear expectations. This cleaning company knew our expectations. It was a bigger company, and they just decided to ignore it because they didn't know we were going to be the kind of owner that would follow up. Yeah. So, that was a big thing.
I think that's really important because your investment is your investment, right? But our investment is our effort and our time. And you want to make sure that you're finding somebody that can put your effort and time that you want for your investment to happen, right?
Yep.
I really think that it's something that we overlook, that I make mistakes. I've been doing this for 8 years. I left my lunch in the refrigerator at a unit. And I was like, I know better. What did I do? I had to go back. And fortunately, the guest hadn't checked in. But, I'm not a robot. I'm not this mechanized thing. I'm just a human, right? And host makes mistakes. All sorts of things can happen. How do you handle constructive criticism? Can you be respectful? Can you say to a cleaning company, this is what I want. Can you please change? Right.
Yep.
I had a conversation with an owner and I did an inspection on their property. It was a great clean. I didn't know the cleaner, didn't know the company. They had done a great job, but the cleaners weren't providing pictures after each unit turn. And so they weren't able to establish claims for damages because they didn't have accurate documentation.
Yep.
And they were extremely frustrated. And I said, you need to up your price and say this price will only go up if it includes documentation for each clean. Yep. And, you're not going to get a better clean than what you have here. This clean's great. I know I tell you that all the time when I follow behind your properties, like, okay, this clean's great, and he really was able to communicate effectively what their expectations were then.
Yeah. And there's going to be times that a cleaner gets rushed or they have too many in a day and they're going to make mistakes, right? Yeah. And I think there's many people that'll jump on the wagon and just fire them right away. So I think it's important to have that conversation and understand what happened. There's been times that some of my cleaners have made mistakes, and they've owned up to it and said, you know what, we're gonna discount that clean for $200 because of the inconvenience, or they're gonna drop what they're doing and go back and fix it. That happens, right? So we are human. We all make mistakes on the host side, the cleaning, the maintenance side. It definitely is a learning experience for all of us. But I think it's important just to keep working together. So.
It is, and I think that humility and that respectful conversation is something you want to look at. I know we're kind of buried from that, but back to the interview questions, really notice the attitude, right? Like, you don't want somebody that's like, I don't make mistakes. That's not true. There is no such thing as a flawless cleaner, right?
Yep.
And so look for someone that can handle correction, that's a learner, that's flexible. You really need those things. We're walking in blind. When we open that door at 10:01, we don't know what we're walking into. It could be a 2-day clean,
Yes.
Very easily.
It can, even especially during spring break. I told everyone on this a couple weeks ago. I had my first ever party that there were 70 people at one of my houses on the West End in mid-March. It was broken up within the hour.
Sure.
We had things in place. We had stuff in place to be able to not let something like happen. But in that hour, they did a little bit of damage. Not a lot. It was only about $400 or $500. It wasn't anything major. But of course, that clean was a much rougher clean, the next day than your typical, family of four or five.
I have cleaned up more Kool-Aid than I really thought was humanly possible. Like, I was like, wow, I did not realize how much Kool-Aid was in circulation,
Yeah.
That is something that I was a little shocked by. Even in our line of work, sometimes we're shocked at what people can do, right? But just equally, we're shocked by people's goodness, like the families that come in and have a great time and the couples that come in and have an amazing stay. That just never gets old.
So, $1 million question. Sure. What do you guys do with all the food and alcohol that's left in these houses?
Listen, this is like our most fun place. I got to tell you. So I have 4 kids. We all go to most cleans together. My oldest has her own separate life, but the 3 kids, my kids call it food Christmas. So when there is a fridge full of food, a lot of times we're like Chopped TV show style coming up with a dinner with it.
Yep.
If we can't use it, I usually look to the neighbors on the unit. So this unit I'm in right now, I just gave the neighbors a dozen eggs because I have 3 dozen eggs at home. So I'm looking for that. We have a lot of fun with what people leave behind in the units, whether it's a lot of pool toys. I have not bought beach toys in maybe 8 years, Joe.
Yes, I bet.
Because, you only can have so many pails and shovels. But yeah, we just have a lot of fun. It's part of our community. It's a rare Saturday that we're not sending a picture in our group text saying who needs this and, this is sealed, who wants this. So
the secret perks of being in the cleaning handyman side of the business.
There are so many secret perks. I have not purchased like toilet paper in maybe like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Because, we're using new rolls in the units, and then, the half-use rolls, we're pulling those, and it's like, well, okay,
Yep, not going to throw it away.
Yeah, so and that has been really fun to see how what we are left can like spread to others, that's a fun part of it.
Yep, I've been into some houses, and it's some people go in thinking, oh, we're gonna go grocery shopping and we're gonna cook all these meals, and we've been guilty of it. And then you get home from the beach, it's like, well, I don't feel like cooking. Let's go out. Let's go out again. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the week, you have a fridge full of food. And for the people that drive, which a lot of people take their stuff with them when they're driving, but for the ones that are flying, they can't take it home.
Yeah, it's really fun. So, if there's something that's unusual, usually it's like condiments. Those are standard left, every time. So I really don't want to see like a bottle of mayonnaise by the end of the season. I'm kind of over that. But it is fun to see like what people leave and what we can do with that. But with a big family, we just really focus on how can we not waste things like that. So.
All right, last question. What's the strangest thing that you found at a rental that was left?
We'll keep it PG. How's that sound?
Okay. Yep.
So, strangest thing. We walked in and there was an inflatable boat in the backyard, like with paddles and the whole setup just literally sitting in the middle of the yard.
Okay.
And it was like, oh, okay. It was very large, like 10 feet long. We're
Wow.
like, well, somebody had a good time here. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. I know firearms are one of those things that's left often
Yes.
that you just don't realize how many people actually do that. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Jewelry. I have had the UPS store by my house knows my name, and they find it very comical when I'm shipping back. So it's a lot of stuffed animals, a lot of really worn blankets for little kids. And then, just bizarre things like whole suitcases that I'm putting in a shipping box at UPS. So it's like, okay, here we go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. So those are the fun perks. Those are the some of the exciting things that you don't really think about that you get to see. So I bet you never imagined any of that 8 years ago getting into it, that you get to see some of that.
No, I couldn't have imagined this life. And now that we live it, I just am so thankful for it. Truly.
One of my cleaners went into a house a couple weeks ago, and apparently the guests didn't check out, and they didn't have a car, so they Ubered from the airport. So the cleaners, of course, thought it was empty. They walk in, and there was a guy passed out in his puke on the kitchen floor. As soon as they opened the door, and they're like, "We're gonna come back later."
We're gonna come back later is a very familiar term in the cleaning world. We have used that many times.
Yes.
We'll be back in a little bit.
Yes. So, well, I appreciate you coming on. Any parting words for people that are hosts that are out there on what they can do to have a better relationship with their cleaners and make sure that this summer coming up is a successful one for their rental?
Yeah, I think really learn to communicate well. That's something that's really important. Think about what you want, what your vision is for your investment, and really learn to communicate that to the people around you. We want to be a part of your team. We want to support your vision. And the better you can communicate that, the better we can support you.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope everyone got a lot out of this episode because there's a bunch of really great nuggets in there, and taking care of your cleaners and your handyman is such a big part of your business. Make sure you treat them as a partner. So thank you guys for joining me on another episode of the Short Term Rental Playmaker podcast, and we'll see you next week.